There's a sad truth coming about right now into the open about Epstein, and people like Andrew Tate, honestly, I'm bringing him up because he's kind of come into the news recently as well. And it's really coming forward as to the saddest part of these people, and we're going to get into that. But have you ever asked yourself, what do the liberals and lefties think about you, your religion, and your relationship with your religion, and what your religion means to you? Have you thought about it? Because I have, and there's some thoughts I have on that one. Also, are you safe around your technology? Have you thought about how safe you are around your technology? And I have a funny story about that one. And on my final note today, and this is going to be an interesting one. What is the biggest lie of racism? What is the biggest lie of racism? Let's go ahead and get into it. It's going to be a spicy show today. Welcome to the Ripple Effect. So, first off, we're going to go straight into the religious side of this. What do the lefties think about your religion, and how does that play into what I'm talking about today? First of all, they kind of think of it as a set of rules, where we have rules that are archaic, stupid, meaningless, and we follow these rules for no reason, and we're just fuddy-duddies for doing so. But, in fact, they would ridicule us every possible moment on how ridiculous we are for following those rules because of just how ridiculous they think those rules are. But at the same time, have you noticed that they love nothing better than throwing all those rules into our face? So, it reminded me of Satan and Jesus, when Satan tempted Jesus, right? And how he tried to use the Bible to throw it into Jesus' face. Well, it's very similar to that. The Congressman LaMonica, I think was her name. She asked the ICE director whether or not he thought he was going to hell because he was deporting foreign criminals. And, you know, it says a lot about these people that they don't seem to know what religion really is if they think this is a got you moment. So let me get this straight, LaMonica. So me doing my job and taking care of protecting my borders and my country and my fellow citizens from a bunch of rapists, murderers, and killers, am I going to go to hell for that? No, LaMonica, I'm not. But you see, that's not the point. LaMonica, the congresswoman, whatever, LaMonica wanted to strike home the point that your religion is forcing you to seem ridiculous for doing these things. And how that works is they pretend that they have no religion, but that's not the truth. It's not that they don't have a religion. They have a religion. They have a moral code, and they want to tell you what that moral code is. And when you stray from that, straight from their moral code, they think that you're straying from your moral code. And the problem is they don't want to admit that they believe in a God, and their God is whatever recent craziness they have going on with them. And so because they, for some reason, like all these illegals, hence it must be immoral for us to actually want them to be deported. Which, no, it's not immoral. In fact, I thought it was pretty interesting. Not the Bee had a whole long section on what is the biblical background for why we deport illegals and for why it's okay to have boundaries and borders in a country and to defend and protect those boundaries. Now, as I had teased, the sad truth about Jeffrey Epstein and all the mediocre men like him, honestly, that's the thing. They're basically mediocre, okay? There is no one really going to be saddened when they die. In fact, a lot of people, in some ways, Epstein was more interesting after he died. If you listen to what he had to say, Epstein specifically, it's kind of ridiculous. In fact, the clip that's going viral right now is him talking about how children shouldn't be taught how to write. Because when you're taught how to write, you're restricted and you're forced into this small bubble. And he dared to mention Socrates and said that Socrates didn't write anything down. Him and Plato and Aristotle, they never wrote anything down. It was just they spouted all the stuff and other people would write it down. Not knowing that all three of those people were prolific writers, and especially Socrates was writing down the stories of Plato. So it's kind of a little hard for him to not know that, I guess. Not very brilliant, not very smart. But coincidentally, Andrew Tate recently came out and has been famously now spread online for saying that he doesn't need to read. The reason why he can't read is because, you know, weirdos read books because they don't have much of a life. They have to read books. For him, his mind is too sharp and too active to read a book. And I don't know why he doesn't realize just how stupid that makes him sound and how ridiculous that makes him sound. I'm not intelligent. I'm not intelligent because I can't calm my brain down because I'm not intelligent. That's all you're saying. You're just subcommon. You're subpar. And the sad part of this, coming down to it, is that we're discovering that Epstein wasn't this brilliant mastermind, that he wasn't this uber smart genius, and that these people like Andrew Tate and so on that are building their little mini empires here and there are building it off of the gullible. And that's the saddest part, is the fact that these people were building these empires and these regimes of control that they had, specifically Epstein, off of just being a con man. And you're now discovering through these 3 million files that they're going through that Jeffrey Epstein would make a small relationship somewhere. That's how it started, and it started to snowball. And then he would use that relationship to leverage another relationship, to leverage another relationship, to leverage another relationship, to leverage another relationship, till everyone just kind of knew of him, and he was kind of there, and he was kind of famous and kind of, around. But no one could 100% put a finger on what exactly got him there. Except he was just a con man who was good at conning people. Conning gullible people, unfortunately. And if you look at Andrew Tate, it's almost the exact same nonsense. By the way, they both have the same sexual deviancies, too, if you've noticed. So, to borrow from a previous thing I just mentioned, both of these men will more likely, Jeffrey Epstein already is, but Andrew Tate more likely than not will as well, will burn for the rest of their lives, the rest of eternity, in hell. Because the saddest part is that in their drive to get all of the earthly pleasures that they have, they missed reading the one book that actually matters, which is the Bible. And they missed the true value in life. And they think that because they have power, money, and influence, and people will talk about their deaths for forever, that's what really matters. And instead, it doesn't. Well, you spend the rest of your life in eternity. That's what will matter. Well, on a different total note, are you safe from your technology? And the funny part is, when we got a system a long time ago, and it was Simply Safe. I mean, people know about Simply Safe. But one of the things that they were famous for mentioning was that in their Simply Safe system, they had a camera that had a physical metal lens that would click over the lens, right? It was like a little shutter. And the reason why they did it is because it made an audible sound when it did it. It went cha-ching, 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 right? And so you could tell if someone was hacking into your system or not. Well, you say, okay, well, we're worried about hackers, or what do you worry? No. Okay. So Ring. Guys over at Ring, please, next time, talk to someone who's normal before you decide to post an ad like you did in the Super Bowl, okay? Not the brightest. So they put an ad out showing about how if you get your dog lost, wouldn't you want to be able to find it, and how they're going to use AI to network all the different Ring devices in the neighborhood and take the footage and piece it together to find your dog for you. And everyone's just like, whoa, what? So Ring can just drop in on my footage whenever they like to, whenever they want to, drop in onto my device? Yeah, guys, that's been going on for a while. And so that's why it's best not to, put them in places you don't want things to be seen, okay? So the whole story and the moral behind this is we have become such a digital place in a stage that we really need to push back and start to pull back from technology a little bit. Not enough to be, lost in the sauce, so to speak, but one of the things is go out and touch grass. Honestly, you want to benefit yourself? Go out and touch grass. You want to benefit yourself? Get off of scrolling on Instagram, Facebook, or wherever else, YouTube, wherever you're doing it at, except for watching my show. Just continue watching my show. That's very important, okay? And read a book. I've actually been reading a book. It's been trying to work on actually reading a physical book, not just on a screen or whatever else, but a physical book. And I've been so blessed. It's been great. I've been enjoying it, and it's actually helped. At first, it's going to sound funny, but at first when I was doing it, because you're reading so much, and I usually listen to my Bible and that kind of thing too as I'm driving, you have a hard time really, really focusing. Oh, Andrew Tate. No, I'm just kidding. Really have a hard time focusing. And then eventually you start to get it down, and it helps you to slow down, to calm down. It's so much beneficial for your body. Now, on the last and final note today, we're going to talk about the biggest lie of racism. And the biggest lie of racism is that we as people are not responsible for our actions and that we are not truly born wicked. This is the biggest lie possible. What they try to tell you is because you're oppressed or you're suffering or whatever else, that's because of other external sources. And then because of that, you just need to be given a bone. And I'm going to get into this. You see this in the situation with the girl that died on the metro. You see this in situation after situation after situation after situation where illegals are coming into the country and they murder, rape, and kill people. And we treat them with kid gloves because, well, they come from such a rough background. They come with such horrible stuff. And you would think someone with common sense would look at this and say, enough of this. Treat every person for what they do, for the content of their character. I've heard that somewhere before. Not the color of their skin. And the biggest lie is that you need the color of your skin to define you. That's the biggest lie. In fact, I was watching this the other day, and we were looking at Charlie Puth did the national anthem for the Super Bowl, and he kind of likened back to Whitney Houston. And I remember thinking just what wonderful singers they were, and how both of them sounded amazing. Both national anthems sounded amazing. I didn't care that one was black and one wasn't. I didn't care that one was a woman and one wasn't. They both did a great, amazing job because there were people with incredible skill and talent. That's what they are. Don't deduct them down to what color their skin is. And I'm saying this in reverse either. So here's the story. So the story is a judge, and she decided that she was going to give a bad guy, a horrible, horrible bad guy, a lightened sentence because he was a victim of his environment because he's black. She couldn't quite say what exactly he was a victim of. It was just the victim of society. And so I'm going to tell you what he did, and then we can define on what you think should have been given to him. So this young man wore a ski mask and abducted a woman in her own car, driving her to a school parking lot where he forced her to perform sexual acts on him at gunpoint. Nice guy, really nice guy. He then drove to an ATM, forced her to withdraw all of her money, and robbed her, and then drove back to the school again to sexually assault her again. So now violently molesting her, or sexually assaulting her. This is the kind of guy, right? He's just super nice, and super generous. Yeah, it definitely seems like he's like the society is what's bringing this about, right? It's nothing to do with him at all, not his character. No. So the local prosecutor asked and that the judge uphold the jury's recommendation that he serve 65 years for the crimes. But through the trial, after all this kind of nonsense, the judge decided at the end that 65 years was just too long for poor Mr. Thompson. This is the guy's name. So despite him being a 24-year-old man with no remorse for his violent crimes, she says that he was not matured mentally yet and has not had a real shot at getting help. And so she cut it in half. And the whole time that this is going on, the defendant is saying garbage to the judge and saying things like, "I will see you in 20 years, B-word." And then he also said, blank, I can't read it. It's just so bad. Blank, 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 all your kids, and blank, all your dead loved ones. Yes, very repentant. And then he said, "Eat my blank, blank, and then I'm going to pop your blank, 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 and blankety blank." So basically, a lot of blanks. This is what he's saying to the judge as she's trying to give him a less sentence. Question for you. I'm not a woman, so maybe I wouldn't know, but I have a question for you. If you're a woman and you're forced to do, let's say, terrible acts on a man at gunpoint, you're then robbed, and then he comes and now decides to do terrible acts to you, okay? And I'm not going to get into description of what they are. When does that stop bothering you? When does that crime stop paying dividends on your soul? So if you don't ever get away from it, what right does this crappy piece of filth have to not have his full punishment and some? This kid should never be let out of jail. He hurt someone in such a way that they'll never be able to get over it. You should never be let out of jail. In fact, the death penalty might be a not good option. you're this unrepentant, you'll never be a productive member of society. We've forgotten how to give out discipline one way or the other. If you won't stop yourself, then the government has to. And the government has to carry a sword for a reason. That's biblical. This judge deserves to be disbarred and should be removed. There is no situation where just because he's black and a young man who's black and whatever society did to him that makes this okay. And if you think that it is, then you're the one that's racist, not me. It's the truth. I'm not sorry to tell you. That's the truth. If you think that this young man should be given an extra bit of, kindness because he's black, you're racist. Not everyone else who's upset with this. Get over it. This is life. You do horrible things, you deserve horrible punishments. That's how it works. And tell it to the young lady who suffered this that she's supposed to just get over it. It's okay. Just half a sentence. It's fine. We live in a sick society, and we need to start getting it back. That's why what you do here watching this makes a difference. Spread the word and let us grow and make a difference out there so people can see these kinds of stories and make a difference. Hopefully at some point we grow big enough that we can contact people around this area and get this judge removed. That's the kind of thing and action that we need in our country to fix it. Thank you so much for watching The Ripple Effect. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It does help so much. Thank you.